Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Winter is over, and with that comes spring. And when spring finds itself into full play, you know that the iRacing Grand Prix Tour is never too far around the corner. We start for the first time in iRacing Grand Prix Tour history here in Cowes, Victoria, on the notorious Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit, as we get ourselves set for the opening of 24 fantastic rounds from what is March over to December. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening around the world here to SimSpeed TV's coverage of some fantastic racing action for you today. My name's Jake Sperry. Taylor Mills is alongside me in the commentary box today for this one. Jay Kennedy is going to be jumping in for the production chair today. But this is a track that is all about high speed. It's all about carrying that momentum, but we expect medium downforce here today for the notorious long parabolic corners. Let's take our Google Earth look down here today at Phillip Island and where it situates itself right down in the corner there, where you can see all the way down in the mouth there of the harbour, the grand city of Melbourne.
Phillip Island, then, one of the coolest and I'd say most unique circuits in Australia. To highlight, you have that big flat out turn one with DRS open out there on track today. Hard on the brakes down into turn two, carry the speed with big runs up through turn 3 and 4. And don't forget about that nigh on flat out turn 9, especially once the tyres are nice and up to temperature and on nice and low fuel. Our drivers are going to be absolutely flying through there today. It's going to be a bit tricky to pull off any sort of overtaking moves, and it's going to require a deft foot on that brake pedal. But looking at the strength of our field today, I don't think that's going to be an issue for anyone out there.
I don't think so either, and you've got one great place to go and make the passes here today, and that'll be into turn number 1, and the reason why, hopefully with a little bit of camera magic, is going to be the DRS zone, that drag reduction system flap that is going to give a huge advantage to these drivers that run through turn 1 and then to confirm the move at the southern loop of turn number 2. That is going to be what is so incredible to keep in mind out for 69 laps worth of racing. In terms of the championship from last season, it was a championship that was pretty much over through a sensational purple patch from Jacob Reed. You can see the iRacing Championship on your screen right now. Over 500 points clear was Jacob Reed by the end. He simply dominated proceedings.
Yeah, and as impressive as it is to watch a driver dominate in the fashion that Reed did, not only in the iRacing Championship, but the SimSpeed standings as well, I think we're going to want just a little bit more competition out there this season. We want to see some different names, some different faces up there at the top of the standings. Of course, we still hope for the best for Jacob Reed. We want him to be out there and getting those top results, but just give us a bit of a battle. Give us a little bit of something to get really excited about. Like, come on, Jacob. Let's see if you lost a bit of his shine this time around.
Well, Jordan Gronkowski was his nearest challenger last season for the iRacing, for the SimSpeed Championship, and was back by 162 points when all things were considered. Eduardo Radice, third in the championship. Volta Lux, fourth, and Florian Kammeyer, with his one win in the season, moving himself into fifth. All the way down in the bottom, George van Rensburg with a career best for his championship efforts, a 10th place, a huge testament to the work that he has continuously put in over 3 years so far, and into year 4 of the iRacing Grand Prix Prix Tour. So that's all to come along, but this is a circuit which does have a very interesting past in terms of past winners out there around this track. It's been one which you definitely have a little bit of a search around for it. We're almost at the end of qualifying, so we'll very quickly skirt on through with this, Taylor, but it's one of those tracks that you sit down with Adam Gleeson, Ben Fuller, Jordan Gronkowski. Surprisingly, a track where Jacob Reed has not won at.
Yeah, and it seems like my wishes are being fulfilled on the history of this circuit already. Of course, Reed will be looking to break the proverbial duck today and hopefully for him take his first win at the circuit, but he is gonna have some competition out there. We talked before the broadcast about how we've got a nearly 5k strength of field out there on track, which means the quality of the drivers that we are going to see racing each other today is absolutely sky high and tip top. I think for you, Sperry, you highlighted Emil Bernstoff as one of the drivers out there that is usually going to put on a show. I had the imponderable joy of having a bit of a scrap with him at Portland earlier this week in the iRacing IndyCar Shakedown, and he is a tough nut to crack. Certainly one of the more difficult drivers that I've come up against in iRacing history, but even though where he's qualified so far, which we'll get to in a second, maybe isn't ideal, if anyone knows how to get the pace out in race trim, it's going to be Bernstoff.
Yep, and we have all these drivers through and done qualifying, so we'll go through the grid where Jacob Reed has put his car on pole position. A fantastic start for his title defense, because last year his title defense started with a PC issue, which meant that he couldn't go to the Nürburgring. He'll have Eduardo Radice alongside him for company in the number 3 machine. In third position, a fantastic qualifying by Wesley Batista, the Brazilian, going from third. He'll have Anthony Cat for company in fourth position, who's very good at the alternative strategy. There is Emil Bernstoff. He'll line up in fifth with Edward Apari-Ari in sixth position overall. And James Byrne will make his first start of the season in seventh, and he'll have Jorge Martinez for company in P number 8. Walter Lux, who was fourth in the championship last time out, he will find himself ninth with Mark Van Dalen, who did get a podium last year over at Long Beach. It's then Nick Burke and Joseph Loke, who is on the 12th position of the grid. Row 7 is housing a couple veterans in Adam Webb and Jason Green, who will look to try and make their progress through the field. Doriano Ricciuti will go from 15th with Eric Bursma in 16th position. Row 9 has Florian Kameyer. They're a little bit out of position with his qualifying effort, and Danilo Piazza in 18th position. It is then Paul O'Regan, who is 19th, with Kent Nielsen there in 20th position, his 61st start of racing in the iRacing Grand Prix Tour, with George Van Rensburg and Michel Rudeau on the 11th row, and the final car of 23 is Lyle Pinar, so he will have a little bit of work to do to try and pull himself forward through the field as we now get ourselves into the 2-minute gridding that we have to get ourselves over to racing. Track temperature here today is 39 degrees. It is hot, and these drivers will be looking around at potentially a 2-stop strategy today if these temperatures remain as hot as they are. So these drivers will all look around and think, what do we need to do in order to keep ourselves in an operating window? There is your soft, medium and hard tyres, and all 3 compounds are being started on here today. So there's a lot to keep track of with the strategy plays that everybody has. You look around this field as the green flag drops, your season gets underway. Jacob Reed with a bucket of wheel spin. It's going to drop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 positions off the start, make it 6, as it's going to be Eduardo Radice who gets the launch of a lifetime through the opening corner and leads this race ahead of Anthony Cat. Apari-Ari finds himself in third, and then it's Wesley Batista who is there in fourth position out to the southern loop, and they will charge their way to Casey Stoner and Jack Miller at turns 3 and 4. But what a start for the Italian as they now hit the brakes.
An absolutely dismal start for Jacob Reed. Those hard tyres giving him absolutely no purchase on the racing service, but Eduardo Radice and Anthony Cat taking advantage of those mediums to jump Reed and run off into the distance. We do have 1 or 2 cars just struggling at the back of the field there. I think we saw Jason Green off down at turn 4. So now he's going to be the last place car and have a lot of work to do as they file their way through turn 9. Down hard on the brakes. Got someone having a look to the inside there, getting 2 cars in one corner. I think that might have been Joseph Floke there, taking advantage of all the cars getting checked up on the left-hand side of the circuit and sending it right deep down the inside of 10 past 2 whole cars. A great move in terms of that one.
Yeah, he did fantastic past 2 medium runners in James Byrne and Mark Van Dalen, and there goes Adam Webb, who's on the soft tyres. He goes screaming through in the blue and papaya that he's running here at the moment. Very McLaren-esque in the way that he's looking to try and conduct himself here. But as they now look at this race, it's about giving themselves that mentality. So crucial that Radice and Cat got the breakaway that they needed to. They're on the medium compound tyres as now the lunges go through the corner, and that is that's Jorge Martinez even going through on Wesley Batista. So Batista starting to go a little bit backwards. He now falls into 6th position with a little bit of work to do then in the early goings of this race. We look a little bit further back now through the pack. This, I believe, is Danilo Piazza, who's a little bit further out of position, and he's trying to go through. And we'll take a look at the opening lap.
Yeah, here it comes then. Here's that replay of, I think it was a mistake for Piazza. You see a bit of a lockup on the outside of the circuit there, straight onto the grass. And even with that update we got a year or so ago, it's going to still give you absolutely no purchase compared to the rest of the circuit. So he's getting those tyres clean, getting them back on the way. He's already caught back up to the rear end of the field. But speaking of drivers that have got some work to do, Piazza is certainly one of those. As Eduardo Radice sets the fastest lap of the race so far.
He does, and moves over a second clear. DRS now available here on lap 3 because we're still using the old spec rules for the drag reduction system. Batista holding off then with Jacob Reed, the 2-time Grand Prix Tour champion, who lunges down the inside at turn number 4 of Jack Miller and gets the pass back through. Now Volta Lux trying to get through, and looks, he's hoping that he can get by, and Joseph Loke has certainly been very aggressive with his top end speed, and that looks like Ricciuti, who's in trouble there at turn 4.
Yeah, another car going off down at turn 4. Certainly a corner that's proving difficult, a little bit treacherous for our drivers out there today. Ricciuti just getting a little bit loose mid-corner, loses the back end, and round he goes off into the grass. More drivers getting thrown onto that recovery strategy right now, but Barry, one thing I'm noticing is that early race tyre strategy is starting to come into play a little bit as the medium runners are starting to make their way up through the field. We are going to have a replay of for you for what happened to Ricciuti down into 4 yet again on the brakes, turns the car in, and there he goes on exit. Rear end goes loose and actually collects another car in that as well.
Yeah, that was Eric Bursma.
But yeah, there you go.
Ended up caught up, and Loke going to have some troubles then as he goes through the southern loop. So Joseph Loke off the road, and after what was a great start from him, it actually went wrong for him at turn 1 because he had straight down the inside of him there trying to make the pass, James Byrne, and basically he scared himself off the circuit not once but twice trying to keep himself out of trouble. He continues in 17th place, but a long road back for Loke now in this one. We'll take another look. So he'll have Byrne turn over on the right hand side, and just as he turns in, the car just doesn't go for him. It just understeers.
Yeah, and that's something that we thought might be something to keep an eye out for today through turn 1, but in the other direction. Of course, they're going to have DRS open through that corner, which under normal circumstances takes downforce off the rear end of the car and usually induces a little bit of oversteer. But in this instance, for some reason, the car just didn't look like it wanted to turn in, maybe playing it a little bit safe on the setup, trying to make sure the car does understeer with that DRS open, as actually it looks like even more cars are going to be struggling with making their way through one with that rear wing flap open. That is Emil Bernstock going wide into the grass just a touch. Doesn't go as poorly as it has done before, but Bernstock does lose out on a position and is going to have another go at it as we have another car off, Sperry.
That's Michel Rudeau off the road, and from his position of 22nd, he's struggling. But I want to give amazing amount of credit here to Edward Apariari here at the start of this season. He's had a fantastic start, up 3 spaces, and he's holding a driver of 9,000 iRacing and Formula 2 caliber behind him in the form of Emil Bernstorff. So when you got that sort of level behind you, he's doing a great job. Martinez on the back, no stranger to winning in races like these either. And then the 2-time champion with 20 race wins to his name, Jacob Reed, who sits there in 6th position, trying to get back onto this group if he possibly can. But they are losing ground here over the course of these laps. To Anthony Cat on that last lap, 0.4 of a second lost on the difference, and Wada Radis was 0.8 of a second quicker than Apariari. Close again into the Southern Loop turn 2, but again, there is no move. It looks to diamond off the corner, come back along again.
So we're going to show you a replay on board, I think, from Jacob Reed to see exactly what happened off the start there. You can, sorry, not quite on board with Jacob Reed, it's Apariari. You can see the great start he got, passing, I think it was 3 cars off the start there to get up to, well, what is now worth 3rd place. And a lot can be done at the start of the race, as you see Apariari got himself onto that inside line to take another position into turn 1, as that's Florian Kamaya off. I think down at turn 4 again. I feel like we're repeating ourselves at this point, Sperry, because people are just going off at that turn every single lap.
Well, here's the issue you've got along the front stretch here with the winds coming in from the southeast, and they are coming in, well, it's not much of one, but you are basically getting a tiny tailwind as you head through this section. So I'm not surprised to see drivers out braking themselves, and they're just trying to defend the position, just overcooks it through the corner. And you can argue there was a bit of brake watching as well from Adam Webb, because another place went the wrong way as well. So that's how quickly it goes. But now around the outside, there goes the move. Emil Bernstorff done waiting here on the start of lap 7. He's through on Edward Apariari, and well, with good reason, because Marquez is still stuck on the mediums, and Jacob Reed has now joined the back of this train. So this is their get up and go message, and here comes Marquez straight down the inside. He'll pick it up, and Edward Apariari's got to be very brave on the exit here as they head through the kink of 5 to Siberia of turn 6, because Jacob Reed tries to sweep around the outside. Does he have to drive off the exit? You bet he does to Hayshed.
Apariari with absolutely no momentum after getting overtaken down into turn 4 loses another 2 spots because of the line that he was forced onto. I think the most surprising thing for me in the moment is the fact that Jacob Reed hasn't really made too much progress back up through the field, dropping all the way down to 8th place off the start and only really up to 5th. It's going to be a game of patience. We've got a very long way to go in this race, only about a 10th of the way there, but Reed just taking his time to get it done, but probably not as far up the grid as you otherwise might have expected. We have a little bit of a scrap looking like it's going to start to break out down into turn 1 this time by Walter Lux on the outside. Batista very brave to hold it on the inside of 1 there, as Lux now has to defend from Adam Webb on the outside of turn 2. Keeps his car tucked in on that preferential line and is already back under the rear wing. Is Wesley Batista on James Byrne in front. Maybe looking for a move into 4, not quite setting itself up to be taken this time, but I think that is a medium runner at the front of this train, and those tyres look like they're a little bit past their best.
Well, I'd argue the opposite. James Byrne had a fantastic move into turn 1 on Batista. He snuck his way through with a power dive down to the inside. 1 car officially out of this race. Danilo Piazza is that driver, so we won't get all finishes here today, but up over the top of Lukey Heights and down the hill, we'll take another look. This is Jacob Reed then, who is going to be out there, and look at the wheel spin that he gets off the line, and then everybody just swarms him on the outside of this start. That's why he lost so many places. Look, that was Walter Lux and Mark Van Dalen, who was trying to get through in the year 1 colours there going through the opening section. So just shows you how much work you have to do. And they're starting to move again, because here comes Batista straight on back, and Walter Lux has contact as they go through. James Byrne shuffled off the circuit, and he'll lose one to Adam Webb as well.
Yeah, the power of the DRS really coming into effect there for Batista and Lux, but Lux getting a little bit greedy on the inside there, and Byrne just trying to do his best to hold it and try not to lose 2 positions in 1 corner. Ends up making contact with Lux just in the middle of 1 there. Car goes off wide, and I don't know if he's carrying a little bit of damage, but he's already getting shuffled down the pack a little bit more as he's coming under a lot of pressure from Adam Webb in those papaya and blue colours just behind. But Sperry, we have a lot of battle pack starting to emerge itself yet again. I've got to say, I'm a little bit surprised it's still this close. With high-speed corners like we're seeing here, it's usually one of those where the dirty air comes into effect and helps the field spread out a bit. But with the help of that run through 12 and down into 1, and the DRS down that straight as well, and how powerful that's been, I think that's really what's keeping all of these cars nose to tail out there on track today.
Yeah, they are all very close, and you've still got here split between 18 seconds, the top 18 drivers at the moment. And Jorge Martinez and Jacob Reed now starting to scrap for 4th and 5th positions. And Reed was close to making that pass, but couldn't get it there through turn 2. Careful on the exit out of the southern loop. And now this run comes along, and this is where the slipstream becomes important, because it staves off the charge of Reed here. Martinez does everything he needs to keep that in check. Lunge down the inside, Batista loses out. That's James Byrne trying to come straight back through, and he gets his place, and behind that, Nick Burke in a bit of a scrap here with Kent Nielsen here, who's on the soft tyres with his good friend Adam Webb, and this is looking for 11th place out there and trying to score some points. So trying to take the long road around is Kent Nielsen. He'll have the inside up the hill at Lukey Heights, and can he just force the move through? He can, and he gains the place.
Properly taking advantage of those soft tyres down at turn 6 just to cut right back to the inside and really squeeze the power on out of the corner. And then there was just nothing that Nick Burke could do. Here we are then on board with Jorge Martinez down into turn 1. That slipstream coming into big effect, and the DRS yet again to slot him up the inside of the first corner, give him that advantageous line into 2. And Martinez is going to make his way into 3rd place as Emil Bernstoff drops down to 4th. And again, with that lack of momentum through 2, it's going to allow Jacob Reed to get right up alongside him, as they're going to be side by side on the run down to one of the field's favorite overtaking spots so far, as they're going to continue side by side through 4. And wide at the apex, and Reed squeezes him, and off the track he goes, back down to 6th place, and he's got to get those tyres scrubbed clean.
There was always going to be a close battle between them, but Emil Bernstorff struggling with understeer, locking the inside front, and Jacob Reed ends up shuffled out off the road, and Edward Apariari squeaks on through, and Jacob Reed's got to do it again. Well, the two-time reigning champion getting no respect out there on circuit, and he is proving that he is going to have to work incredibly hard over the course of this season. We'll take another look. Reed was so good down through turn 2 to go and get that move sorted, but it's where you're at 4. He's on the outside. He has to wait and wait and wait. Now watch this. Yeah, that just lock of the inside, front right, enough for Emil Bernstorff to go through the corner. He'll probably put his hand up and say oopsie daisy, but for Jacob Reed, that's a place and time he's lost.
And to be fair, I can't lie, I did see that move coming a couple of laps ago, because I don't know if anyone else noticed, but you did have that big red flashing light on the back of Jacob Reed's car coming up pretty early on the run down to turn 4. But we are going to get a quick replay for you of something that we did see. I think that was, not quite sure who that was, way off. Batista, it is, into turn 2, trying to avoid the car in front, slams into the barrier on the outside. I can't tell if he's got any damage off that, but that car is continuing as far as I can see. But just to touch on the Jacob Reed versus Bernstorff fight yet again, big red flashing light back of the car. Reed had turned that electrical deployment map right the way down in that slipstream, was using the extra speed from being in the draft of the car in front just to save some of that energy, and then deployed it out of turn 2 on the lap. He did go for the move, and he just had such an advantage over Bernstorff with all that extra power on the run down that flat out section, that he was able to pull way alongside well early and set himself up to make that move around the outside. But unfortunately, it just didn't quite work out for him on this occasion.
No, it didn't. And into the pit comes Wesley Batista, no doubt with a little bit of damage that he's got out there at the moment. His wheel was crabbing over to the right-hand side, so he had to be very careful about that. Anthony Catt, though, struggling now on the medium tyres. He's falling backwards into the clutches of Jorge Martinez and the entire train, which goes all the way back to Walter Lux, who is there in 7th position, the Austrian. So Anthony Catt unable to stay with the rapid pace of Eduardo Radice, who has the fastest lap check mark next to his name for the first time this in terms of the SimSpeed Championship here, Taylor. There is no fastest lap bonus point. They've abolished it in Formula 1. We'll abolish it for the SimSpeed Championship.
Thank goodness, because I do feel like that was one of the most pointless points ever awarded in motorsport. If you want drivers to go fast in the race, the way you do it isn't by giving them a fastest lap point. But thankfully for us right now, we do have a battle starting to emerge itself on track. Jorge Martinez, as much as he is struggling on those mediums, it's bad for him, it's good for us, as Apariari, Bernstorff, Reed all close up to the back of him. Some of them, well, all of them even, just doing a great job to hold on to those hard tyres. And for Martinez, those mediums did work at the start of the race, but such is the nature of this style of racing. You have those different tyre compounds. done which deck faster than others. But enough about that. I see a little bit of a fight for position emerging out there on track. It's Walter Lux down the inside of Jacob Reed. Reed forced to the outside yet again.
That's Reed.
You know what it was, isn't it?
So he gets him back. So Bernstorff's lost out to Edward Apariari for position. So he's gone backwards here over this last stage. And now he's down into P6 and -1 for his day. So this mid-pack group looks like it's all going to be together. Leader of the heart moment is Apariari for that place, and I think we're going to take a replay here of what's gone a little bit further down through. Is this Michel Rudeau that we're on board with at the moment? So this is Rudeau. Oh, he gets a massive snap there at the final phase of just getting a gear going through at turn 11, and it's very easy to loop the back there with the torque that goes through the engine just flicking through the gears.
1,000 horsepower out the back of these engines, and even with those double clutch seamless shifts, you still get a little bit of snapping if you've got too much power going through the gearbox. But Jacob Reed just having a peek on Edward Apariari there into turn 2. Can't quite get the car alongside, but look at the run out of the corner. Reed's going to draw alongside way before turn 3, as he's going to be forced to the outside of 4 yet again. Hard on the brakes for both drivers. Reed gets it, just about gets it stopped though. Right around the outside of 4. They're going to, in fact, they're not even going to continue side by side, because Reed just able to get on the throttle that little bit earlier on the outside of that corner, can squeeze his car in front of Apariari and shuffle the 12 down one more position.
It's nuts. That's absolutely insane of a pass by Jacob Reed. There's no right for him to make that corner, and then he just manages to find the grip and make the move anyway on Edward Apariari. I think if you were Edward, you just stare there and you have your mouth gawping open and go, how on earth has he managed that? It's one of those moments that he's just gone through, and he's seen why he's a two-time world champion here. But there are your projected tyre lives. So the soft tyres we think are in the window right now. The medium's another 8 laps away, but speaking of 8 laps away, it might be more for Jorge Martinez. Jacob Reed slices and dices. He gets three moves done in a lap and a bit.
As much as in the first half of the race we've had so far, I was saying that Reed wasn't making any progress through the field. I think he heard me, because in the last few laps, he's turned that wick right the way up and made up all of those positions and is already on the tail end of Anthony Catt. His march through the field right now is absolutely relentless, and it's going to be helped by the fact that those mediums are starting to fall off just a little bit, as Anthony Catt just slowly dropping back into his clutches. His lap times aren't quite where they have been since the start of this race. It was an 11.7 for Catt last lap compared to a 10.9 for Reed. Of course, Reed did have the advantage of DRS, but DRS isn't worth nearly a second around here.
Right, so now here where you're going to get interesting on strategy. I think this is a case of how long can you extend the tyre life out there, as we see Reed chasing down Anthony Catt then for position. Flat goes open as he's within 1 second of the car in front, and hunting at 326 kilometers an hour through the opening section. Looks, by the way, through on Emil Bernstorff and into turn 2, the southern loop. That's where Jacob Reed's been so good at just getting the power down off the exit. He's just had so much more grip available to him that he's been making that work in a way that I think not many people have been able to do like him. But I think he's looking around now and he sees the group still there. Martinez, Apariari, looks, Bernstorff, they're all sitting there realizing what they've got to do, and it's 7.5 seconds now to Eduardo Radice, who leads this field. So this is second through to 7th, and still a lot to play with here in strategy. And I keep an eye out on Kent Nielsen and Adam Webb, because if they can extend those soft tyres to lap 20, they've got a chance for a soft medium two-stop to work.
I think one of the really cool things about watching Reed close up to the back of Catt on DRS there is it all looked a little bit super speedway to me. The way he lifted off into one just to stop his momentum a little bit, got back on the throttle in the middle of the corner to have that overspeed yet again, as that DRS is going to open once again. Is Reed going to go for it into one this time? Catt defends to the inside. Reed moves to the outside and puts himself in a very difficult position, but just swoops to the inside of the corner again. Well clear of Anthony Catt, taking advantage of all of that extra speed from the DRS with absolutely zero hesitation this time. Eduardo Radice, 7.5 seconds up the road, and Reed has got a clear track in front of him.
Yeah, so now he's just got to buckle down and push, and that's what he's trying to do on this strategy. As he does that, he pushes a little wide through the corner, gets well over onto the curbs on the left-hand side, but still looking to charge with everything he's got. Marquez still sat there in 4th position, has a chance to make himself known at the moment with a Pariari, then Lux, then Bernstorff, and then behind that, James Bird is about 3 seconds back, trying to chase up onto this group on a set of medium compound tyres. So still a lot to do, and there's still been great movement through this field. Ken Nielsen and George van Rensburg, both your biggest movers in the field, both up 11.
These regulations were introduced in 2022 to try and improve the racing that we were seeing in Formula One. Everyone was a little bit hesitant as whether or not it would actually work. And in that first year of these regulations, we did see some improvement as Jorge Martinez is going to do a Jacob Reed, goes through on Anthony Cat into turn 1 and makes up that place very easily. But we have seen an improvement of racing. We have seen the field be a lot closer together, and that's even carried over to sim racing. We have a train of, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars that are all sat within about 0.3 of a second of each other as Cat really struggling off turn 2. It's coming under huge attack from a Pariari on the inside. Can't do anything to defend, and losing that momentum out of turn 4 again is going to leave him vulnerable to attack from Walter Lux. He's going to switch back to the inside, picks up that throttle, and there is nothing that Cat can do at that point as they will go side by side through turn 8 into turn 9. Cat taking, well, there's nothing he can do. Forced to the inside, no run that he could take as Pariari will hold on, and Walter Lux still looking to defend from positions from Emil Bernstorff, who's trying to force the issue. Other way around, yeah.
Yeah, so now he's trying to go through, and in comes Cat. No surprises there. So Anthony Cat dives into the pits. His tyres were shot here by 20 laps through, and he will definitely want a hard compound tyre by the time he makes that stop. Look, side by side with Emil Bernstorff, both of them trying to save as much energy as they can on the straight, trying to get this sorted. The big look at the southern loop. Bernstorff throws it back down the inside of Lux, but Lux will get the power earlier off of the exit here, and they'll duel again towards turns 3 and 4 through Casey Stoner towards Jack Miller, and Lux, I think, just backed out of it and said, I want none of it. So he's allowing that then to fix themselves out, because they realised, and I think Walter Lux was very good at realising this out there at the moment, Taylor. It's very simply this. Lux knows they've got to stay within the second of a Pariari, otherwise they're gone.
Yeah, he's being very smart about this. Again, there is an element of super speedway racing to it, of just staying with the pack, because that's exactly what he needs to do. But Jacob Reed has built such a gap over the cars behind him so far, already up to 3.3 seconds clear, and already pulled in a second on Eduardo Radice. This looks like it's going to be the battle that just extends itself over the duration of this race, as it's not only going to be a game of patience for Reed to just march up to the back of Radice, it's going to be a game of patience for us as we sit on the edge of our seats waiting for that to happen, because we know what Reed's capable of, as it looks like we do have another taker down pit road.
Yeah, that's Ken Nielsen, who's trying to get off a set of softs, and it's worth noting Anthony Cat, a second set of medium tyres have gone on for him, up on the jacks and then off the jacks. It's a long stop for Ken Nielsen, 5.1. I think that he overshot his box slightly, and as such, they didn't get the crew close enough in time. So he'll come out and away, and very crucially, as he falls down the order, to a set of medium tyres. So he's probably looking at this going, well, I'll take the medium stop now, and I'll get the quickest set of tyres when I've got the lightest amount of fuel, and that's also going to be very key. When you've got less fuel in the car, you're actually putting less wear through the tyre.
Yeah, and I want to give a little bit of credit where it's due. We've seen all these alternate tyre strategies coming into play here, and we watched as Anthony Cat just dropped through the field, really struggling to hang on to the life in those mediums. But someone who isn't really struggling with that at all at the moment is Jorge Martinez, who is doing a great job of holding on to third place from Eduardo Pariari and Emil Bernstorff, two very, very fast drivers on what you think is the preferred tyre as Walter Lux comes down pit lane for the first time. And as I say that, to the inside is a Pariari. He's going to snatch P3 from the hands of Martinez into 1 and maintain that advantage through 2. It's going to leave Martinez in dirty air for the first time in a while, which may leave him vulnerable to Emil Bernstorff behind. We've got a big run down towards turn 4. It's a spot where we've seen moves made all race so far. A bit of derating from Bernstorff there. He doesn't go for the move into 4, and it is going to let Martinez live for just one more day. But let's see what happens in the next lap or so, because Martinez may be shooting a look towards pit lane right now.
And you've got to keep an eye on Anthony Cat because he's starting to make progress and he's going for big undercuts here, there and everywhere. And he's having to battle with Joseph Loke for position currently as he now tries to go round the outside with power off the exit of 4. Joseph Loke, that's why you don't fight someone who's on fresh tyres, because he just made him look like that was not great. And as that happened, Loke blinking about there like crazy, and he's got to be very careful about that and how much he blinks, because of course they've got the connection flag in play. In comes James Byrne now to make his first stop.
I am absolutely blown away with Loke being able to make that work right around the outside, just picking up the throttle, taking advantage of those fresh tyres to make that move work. We are going to follow Byrne down pit lane for the first time. Relatively quick stop in these cars. You're looking at 2.5 seconds as he's going to come to a stop up in those front and rear jacks. We just turn our eyes back to the front of the field for a second. Jorge Martinez has actually survived in the back. Oh, I think that was Bernstorff missing his braking point down into turn 4. He's going to have to get that thing turned around and get it back on the road relatively quickly. But that is a rare mistake from Bernstorff there.
He completely missed his braking zone and had to abandon stage left to try and make sure he didn't run straight up the back of Jorge Martinez. Bernstorff, how often do you see him make a mistake like this in a race? Now he's behind Nick Burke. You'll see it here through turn 3, and he's looking around 7th gear, and he just misses his braking point. It's as simple as that.
And it's so easy to do when you're embroiled in a fight with another driver. You get target fixation on that car in front of you, and you stop reacting to your braking, turning, throttle points, and you start just reacting to the car that you're following. Down pit lane then, I think that is Emil Bernstorff decided to abandon those hard compound tires. Nick Burke just in front as those two almost end up nose to tail more physically with each other than you might otherwise expect. And surprisingly, Martinez is going to continue on those medium tires, and again, is still getting pace out of them. I don't know how he's managing it, but he's actually matching everyone around him as Walter Lux takes that fastest lap of the session so far at 1 minute 8.9.
It's a wonderful lap by Walter Lux, who has moved on to a set of soft compound tyres, and that is a big, bold decision. Off the road, Ken Nielsen's off the road, 3 cars off the road. Richie Uti was off the road, so too Michel Rudeau. They've all followed each other off at turn 2, and Nielsen will sheepishly get himself back out on track, but this now brings James Byrne into perspective now, into this battle that they've got with the likes of what he's got, as he now goes past Richie Uti. But you don't often see 3 cars off at the same time.
It's almost like they're proving my point. Maybe it is a bit of target fixation. Off goes Rudeau and goes a little bit wide on the inside of 2 and just bumps. I think that was Nielsen off on the outside there.
Yeah.
As I don't think anyone else is going to join them off the circuit there, but just a bit of a moment for Rudeau on the inside. Couldn't quite hang on and just takes another car with him. Fortunately, it looks like no damage for either driver as they will get to continue. But we may have another bit of a fight happening as Adam Webb, I think that is just in front of George Rensburg through turn 12. We've seen the moves be made down, not even down into turn 12, goodness gracious me, losing track of this circuit. Into turn 4 we are. George Van Rensburg still in front. Paul O'Regan, goodness me. Adam Webb is up front there. George Van Rensburg is following. It's been a while since I've done one of these races. These cars are significantly faster than the ones I normally follow, Sperry.
Yes, and here's the thing. Adam Webb is 25 laps on with a set of soft compound tyres. He has the potential to do a one-stop strategy here today, and that could throw a major cat amongst the pigeons for race result. There's Anthony Cat, and he's trying desperately to get through a Camar because behind him is Walter Lux, and both of those drivers, Cat and Lux, have made their stops. In comes Jorge Martinez to get off his set of medium compound tyres. Camar then finds himself on the wrong side of the road. The German will look around. He'll see the Brit trying to go through. The Austrian's also going to follow with a hefty amount of slipstream as well, and that's 2 for the price of 1 straight, and Martinez is a mile behind these drivers.
I think the fun part is watching both of those cars close the DRS as they were coming through turn 1. You can go through one with the DRS open, but it is very, very difficult. Florian Camino now has to watch Walter Lux and Anthony Cat having a scrap in front of him. Lux is on those soft compound tires compared to Anthony Cat on the mediums. It's going to be a real simple move on the brakes, on the better line on the inside of turn 4. It's snatches that position and is now just thinking of running away, already half a second clear of Anthony Cat and trying to
leapfrog him in that pit stop. But the fact that they're going so long might indicate that there is a one-stop strategy potentially at play. So there is still a lot that can happen. We're not even at the halfway stage of this race. Radish, your leader from Jacob Reed, who is slowly clawing that gap down now. It's down to 4.5 seconds at the front as we look at Lyle Pinar and everybody else for this top 10. Martinez through on Mark Van Dalen, who was joking about the GP2 engine that he's got in his Mercedes right now because he's just not got it on the straights. And now here comes James Byrne into the play.
James Byrne then really on the attack, trying to make up spots and get himself back up inside that top 10 to the inside of turn 3. Jorge Martinez actually is going to get back up the inside of 4 on Lyle Pinar, and there's nothing that Pinar can do as Martinez just shuffles his way back up into P9 on those hard compound tires. Pinar's tires are much, much older, as there's Eduardo Radice at the front of the field, putting Jason Green a lap down already. We're not, you said it yourself, Sperry, we're not halfway through this race, and that is a bit of a disaster from Jason Green. But here's Edward Apariari, who has made a little bit of an error in that final sector. Hopefully we'll be able to get a replay of that one, just coming out of turn 11, I think this is. Oh, on the grass into turn 12, trying to carry as much speed through there as he can, and just opens the corner a little bit too much. Edward, this isn't Spa, and this isn't GT3s. Going off onto the grass isn't going to cool your tires down, mate.
No, but the issue that he had there was he was caught up on the curb, and I think the moment he tried to turn, he realised he couldn't because he was so far over on it. And for Apariari, that's George Van Rensburg, and that's Adam Webb. And Adam Webb, who has looked around and has seen that Apariari was right up at the front on hard tyres, on softs. Adam Webb has just been whispering to those tyres, and he might be in a fantastic situation, especially when you consider how much the track temperature has started to drop. It's gone down 3 degrees Celsius over the course of this race, down to 36 out there at the moment, but he has a huge slide going through MG, and that brings Volta Lux into play. And surely Adam Webb, now's the time to think about coming down to the pits, but he'll go for a 29th lap on those softs.
And that, again, you touched on it, Sperry. Think about how that track temperature has started to come down. In iRacing, it does play such a huge factor as Walter looks with the DRS down the inside of turn 1 on Adam Webb and is well clear before they even get to the apex. But as those track temperatures do come down, again, dropping 3 Celsius from the start of this race, it reduces tire wear by so much and just really opens up the opportunity to maybe try something a little bit different, especially with the amount of cloud cover we're seeing today, as I think we got a little bit of a replay of some of that's happened out there on Tracksberry.
This is Mark Van Dalen, and he gets close to the back and has to get out of it there. Half slide as he goes through MG corner, very nearly making contact there. It might have been there with Nick Burke or even some lap traffic, so that would have been dramatic. I want to keep an eye on some times here. Eduardo Radice is now just dived into the pits. He did an 11.5, did the race leader on that last lap. Jacob Reed will follow him in. But crucially, he was losing about 1.8 seconds a lap to Volta Lux on that last go by. And watch here on the left, because that will be Apariari, who will take probably his first lap lead ever in the Grand Prix Tour. And here comes the move for what is now second position. George Van Rensburg, nothing he can do. Volta Lux now P2 and effectively your net race leader.
I was going to say, that's the more important thing here. It's the fact that Van Rensburg is on 30-lap-old hards and Volta Lux on 9-lap-old softs has just taken the net lead. Apariari still yet to pit, but Anthony Cat, I think that's having a look around the outside of turn 3, setting himself up for the inside of 4. Feel like a bit of a broken record, but this is where all the moves look like they're happening here today. That was your previous race leader, Eduardo Radice. Jacob Reed working on catching him back up, and actually that was Jacob Reed going very wide down at turn 4. Those soft compound tires with no temperature in them, just giving him no grip on the racing surface. As there's Emil Bernstorff even going up a position. I'm trying to figure out exactly which one it was. I think it was on Mark Van Dalen for only P13, but again, we still have a bit of pit stop cycle to play out here, but Bernstorff well down the order right now. Here's that replay, Barry.
Yeah, but you've got to realise that Emil Bernstorff has got himself a hard compound tyre. There's Jacob Reed off the road. Cold tyres as he looks to get himself going. you stare down at it, and it's been anything but easy for Jacob Reed. Finally, Adam Webb is going to dive into the pits, and if he goes onto a medium tyre here and tries to go all the way to the end, this might be one of the greatest one-stop strategies that he's concocted out there, and he does. A medium tyre as he leaves the box, 4 seconds. It's on for the race lead now, as Edward Apariari, who's been hanging himself out on the hard tyre, is probably trying to give himself enough room to dive down into the pits and give himself a tyre to the end. Probably wants the soft tyre to the end of the race, not the same way that Jacob Reed's done it. He will have to go uber aggressive, and probably he's trying to convert to a 2-stop strategy, but you can't sit forever because you've got Van Rensburg, who's trying to hold back Cat, and also Eduardo Radice, who's there trying to go for position through MG, and now they've got these final 2 corners, 11 and 12, which leads to the Gardner Straight and Doohan corner, and Apariari now is going to be sitting duck for this race lead. Here comes Walter Lux, and he will have the DRS at full bore.
15 kilometers per hour extra top end speed by the time they get down to the end of the straight. Lux goes to the outside. Apariari can do absolutely nothing to defend that position. Lux will move into the race lead. Apariari doesn't fight it. He knows that neither of these cars are on the same strategy. But there is Jacob Reed, 1 minute 8.2. He has just set the fastest lap of the race. He is doing everything he can to try and make up for all of that lost time from the start of the race. And that's how much it has affected him. 32 laps in the race, and he's still needing to do so much work to get back to the front of the field and overcome this little bit of a strategy play we've got being pulled by the likes of Apariari and by the likes of Walter Lux that have just gone for something a little bit different to try and get themselves into a slightly better position, and it's working.
It is, and that's what's got them the track position, but they'll probably have to come in once more. Walter Lux has used his 2 tyre compound, so he can choose whichever he wants when he comes in, and probably it will be another set of the softs if he has confidence in the way he's driving them, which he does. But look behind him here, because Edward Apariari now is going to be lame again. This is going to be Eduardo Radice closing, and will he sweep around the outside of turn 1, trying to get the inside of turn 2 here at the southern loop. He dives for it, down the inside. Oh, it was as if he was stood still. Eduardo Radice fully as he gets the pass done on Edward Apariari. Nothing he can do, and he'll stare over the next couple of laps because Anthony Cat, who's trying to keep his strategy alive, is there too. And of course, Jacob Reed, he'll be trying to chase that gap down. It's now 7.5 for him to try and chase down the race lead. We'll take another look at how easy this was in the end.
Well, credit where it's due, Radice was quite far back when it came into turn 1, but Apariari with that defense to the outside opens up the outside of 1, presents the inside of 2 to Eduardo Radice, who just takes it without barely any effort. But for Apariari, he is just unbothered in his lane, moisturized, doing everything he can to make his strategy work. It's another fight that we know isn't really important for position, but Eduardo Radice taking great advantage of those 8 lap pressure tires to the inside of 1. DRS wide open. It is going to be soft.
He got them both of Anthony Cat and George Van Rensburg over at turn 2 of the southern loop. I think he's got a new favourite corner. Cat now going through on Van Rensburg, who's yet to pit and is staying out as long as he can on the hard compound tyre to give himself a one-stop strategy that will work for him. He's up effectively 15 places at the moment, but the question is, will that work by the time the end of this race comes around? That's going to be where we start noticing where he comes out in the shuffle. But Radice, your race leader, it took him so long last season. He was so close. He was on the podium, I think, 9 times, Taylor, before victory came along eventually at Interlagos. But here in 2025, he's trying to make sure that this is the Eduardo Radice season.
Well, you say that, but Jacob Reed is still making progress through the field. He's just got past Edward Apariari for 3rd place. He's still 6 seconds back on Radice, which is about what the gap was before they came down pit lane. But both of these drivers have had to make their way through other cars on those alternate strategies, and they're both doing a fantastic job of it. But for Reed now, the only thing between him and Radice and the lead and potential first win of the season, 5.5 seconds, and a little-known driver called Walter Lux. There's the gap for you. That's how it is starting to shift as the race continues. Radice a little bit quicker than Reed in the previous 2 laps, but on the last lap, 0.2 of a second quicker, as Reed is closing in. But again, he still has to get past Walter Lux. There is going to be a bit of a tyre differential of about 8 laps by the time he gets there. But with how we've seen some of these drivers take those softs deep into the race, and with the track temperature having previously dropped and now going back up, I expect it to be, never mind, it's not going to be difficult for Reed at all. Walter Lux comes down pit lane.
Yep, so he'll come in, make that stop, and now he's got himself a decision to make because he's got 34 laps to try and get himself over to the end. And will he go on to a medium or a hard tyre to make that happen? So as he takes his box, he will leave again. It's another set of the soft compound tyres. So that indicates to me a 3-stop out there. Apariari also finally departs then into the box along with George van Rensburg. Apariari's gone out onto a soft, and so too George van Rensburg. So they're on 2 stops.
It's a relatively short pit lane here at Phillip Island. Time loss about 22 seconds or so. And it's one of those circuits that does open up the opportunity to go for something a little bit different. Take an extra stop. Really take advantage of how soft those soft tires are and really push to the end of the race. You are seeing that fight for position between Eduardo Rodis and Jacob Reed yet again. Reed isn't chunking at the time between him and Rodis right now. He is just chipping away at it lap by lap by lap. There's your sector differences. It was half a second in sector 1. I think Reed had a little bit of DRS to help him out that time by, but it's just a little bit by little bit. And right now, that's all he needs because he has a lot of laps to make it happen. We are pretty much only just halfway through this race, and we've still got, count them, 33 laps. Thank you, Jay. Thank you. 33 laps to go in this race. That is plenty of time. Reed doesn't need to rush this. And that's why I love this sort of racing, because you can just wait a little bit. Walter Lux to the inside of Nick Berg with the advantage of that DRS. It's another move that we've seen so often in this race. Lux just able to sweep by, take all that clean air into turn 2, and then give himself a great run out of the corner and really start to run off into the distance, because Nick Berg has already been dropped by nearly a second.
Yep, so Nick Burke there in 7th, now realises the group's there. Looks a full pit stop clear. He managed to get over Emil Bernstorff and effectively even now on his race with the number 1 car in this field. Now, I have just noticed why Mark van Dalen is struggling on the straights and is screaming GP2 engine each and every single time. Look at the rear bevel of the rear wing. He's gone for the high downforce package here today. So he's going to be a driver, Mark van Dalen, the number 23, that's struggling. By comparison, that's what the medium downforce package looks like. The straight wing, which is there, and you can see 2 straight wings, but Van Dalen in the number 23, if we can somehow coordinate that, there you can see it there. That is a high downforce wing.
Well, the kids these days would call that loaded and unloaded. Of course, that medium downforce just giving so much less drag, but just a significant amount less grip in the corners. I think Van Dalen was just trying to take advantage of being in the slipstream for the majority of this race. It's one of those differences between the fixed and open setups. In the fixed series, it does use the high downforce package here at Phillip Island, but for those who know how to set up a car and know anything about aero packages, medium downforce is such a better fit. You typically want to get it set up for the fastest corner, highest downforce corner on the track, as we do have a little scrap starting to emerge on track. And for this track, it's turn 9, and as long as you can still go flat through there, you've got enough aero on the car.
Oh, Ken Nielsen just inviting Edward Apariari at every section, but no love there. George van Rensburg also wants to get himself involved and get through if he can. If he can jump Edward Apariari, he'll be really happy on those soft tyres. In comes Anthony Cat for his 2nd stop of the race with 31 laps to go as we watch what's going on in the midfield as Cat now trundles down the lane. Troubles on the exit, though, of MG corner, and Apariari around the outside of 11. You need confidence to make that happen, and he gets it with aplomb with that sort of move. And it's a 4-second stop for Anthony Cat, 24.3 in the lane as he exits. He will exit just behind this group, and here comes the look back, though, from Ken Nielsen at turn 1, and he makes it so difficult because he's one of the toughest battlers to deal with in this one. George van Rensburg tries to get them both and will get them both.
It was that squeeze to the inside of 1 from Nielsen that just checked Apariari up on the way into turn 2, but Apariari is going to come back on Kent Nielsen down into turn 4. the most popular passing place on the circuit, is taken advantage of yet again, as Apariari, who lost 2 positions into one corner, very quickly makes another one back. But I think the driver that gets the most credit there was George van Rensburg, who just picked both of them off whilst they were scrapping and almost ignoring his existence. But here comes Anthony Cat to the inside of Nielsen, forces it the long way around turn 8 and shoves it up the inside of 9, gets a nice clean run through that and up into 14th place. Kent Nielsen is lamenting on those mediums.
Yeah, and is doing a wonderful job in terms of the passing game right now. This is a Kent Nielsen, by the way, that has not had a podium since Indianapolis in 2022, and of course hasn't had a top 5 since Silverstone last year. So he's got a little bit of work to do, as he's been on a drought of about 10 races.
Ooh.
That's top 5, and speaking of which, round you go. I think that might be Loke. It is Joseph Loke over the berm. He goes around, and that's a hefty hit that he finds through. He'll now have to try and rejoin the circuit safely. He manages that, but a massive moment off the exit, and that was George van Rensburg attacking as he went through, but Loke just too much reliance on the grip of the rear tyres.
Yeah, here's going to be a replay for you. 17 lap old medium, so they are starting to just get a little bit past their best. You see the car a little bit unsettled on the entry into turn 2, and then he tries to throttle up out of the corner, and the rear's just got absolutely nothing to give him. As much as that wiggle on entry didn't look like much, there is a little bit of a flash heating issue with these tyres on iRacing, and I think that's what Joseph Loke came a little bit victim of on the exit of the corner there, and there was just absolutely nothing he could do to recover it. I'm watching him now, and he's still struggling with the grip at the rear. Nick Berg, a bit of a brick on those straights, as he's going to come under plenty of pressure from Emil Bernstorff down into turn 2. These guys are going to go, and Berg is going to have to give that position up. But as we've seen so often, will sacrifice all the momentum through the corner as Florian Kammeyer wants to get involved in this fight.
Yeah, and Florian's been very quiet in the way that he's conducted this race. He's in P8 right now, and he was going backwards. Oh, that's a penalty flag then for Joseph Lowe, because he hit 17 instant points already.
I mean, yeah, it's to be expected with how things have gone for him in the last couple of moments. Of course, you pick up those random off tracks every now and again. Phillip Island's a really unforgiving circuit for incidents like that. And picking up a 2x like he did on that lap previous, and then just picking up that 1x there, you can sort of imagine the things he's been struggling with so far in this race. And he's going to have to take an unexpected trip down pit lane, as I've actually just watched him go off again. Loke is really, really struggling right now.
Yeah, I think the rhythm's been broken for him, and at 17 instant points, you get a drive-through penalty, and then it's every 8 instant points afterwards you get that. Here comes Walter Lux, though. That's Kammeyer even making the move. So Kammeyer gets the pass on Nick Berg. That puts him up into 7th position, and now he looks to try and improve with his run on the back of Bernstorff. And speaking of moves, Lux actually has now moved himself up to 3rd. He's passed Martinez on the hards, who might be on the hard tyre all the way to the end, and he also was able to dispatch a James Bird without too much trouble. Burke now back in 8th, and look at what's behind him. Van Rensburg, O'Regan, Anthony Cat, Apari Ari, Adam Webb, they're all there.
And it's not just a scrap for 10th as well. This one extends all the way up to Emil Bernstorff up in 6th place. We are going to see a replay, I think, of Loke for you again. And yeah, you can see him just losing the back end down into turn 10, and off the track he goes. But here's Nick Berg just trying to follow Kammeyer through the same corner we just saw Joseph Loke having issues with, as he's coming under all sorts of pressure from George van Rensburg behind a driver we've seen be so good at overtaking so far in this race. Berg is going to have that DRS to defend with down the straight. Actually, he's not, or he hasn't activated it. Van Rensburg is going to get through with absolutely no issues. You can see them shuffling for position behind, as well as Paul O'Regan looking to try and stay in front of Anthony Cat. But Nick Berg, another sitting duck yet again on the straight for George van Rensburg to just fly through and carry all that momentum, as we do actually have a bit of side-by-side racing going on. I think that's Paul O'Regan and Edward Apariari for P11, as on the inside is Cat, and just about makes that position as well.
And this is crucial because Apariari and Anthony Cat are trying to follow George Van Rensburg through this group here. They're on the same strategy, but they're finding themselves bottled up with the traffic. Cat with a fantastic run here through the hayshed will now eye up Nick Burke potentially at Lukey Heights, but won't decide to go and make that move through the corner. But they need to stay as much as they can with George Van Rensburg. He is their guiding light, and he will have to try and be followed as he goes through. Van Rensburg eyeing up Kammeyer, eyeing up Emil Bernstorff. Loke back into the pit again. Another penalty. He's already got back up to 25 incident points there. That's how quickly he's managed to rack them up once again. But now here comes the looks on this straight. So Burke will lose out now to Anthony Cat in terms of his place. And just in front of that, Van Rensburg sidles his way on through on Florian Kammeyer.
It's twinsies into turn one this time by, as we have two overtakes happening in exactly the same spot. George Van Rensburg, on those much fresher tyres than those cars around him, is beginning his own little march through the field. He's got Emil Bernstorff in front of him for company now, who's on 21 lap old hards. But in the background, was that who was that? Was that going around the outside of 4?
Yeah,
that is
around the outside of 4. That is a fantastic spot to make a move, Taylor. You're absolutely right. And that just shows you the confidence difference when you've got all of the pace available like Apariari does on his set of soft tyres. So he can charge against the mediums of Burke and O'Regan and Webb and Nielsen. It's a lot easier. We'll take another look at it here. Going to turn 4. So now through here at turn 3. That allows the side-by-side. You can see the energy harvesting because the rain light's flashing. No rain here at the moment with these cars right now, but hopefully we'll see that a little bit later on. But they can see it as perfect as you like. And now more moves coming along on the straights. As Emil Bernstorff loses out to George Van Rensburg and Cat through on Kammeyer.
And again, a couple of those moves that were well on their way. The tyre strategy difference coming into effect. Bernstorff approaching the end of the tyre life on those hards. Not too rapidly. These things will last absolutely ages. But Van Rensburg is only 10 laps into his stint on the soft, so still plenty of life left in them. He's got his eyes squarely up the field right now on James Byrne, who is only 4 seconds ahead. Bernstorff, though, I think is really going to start to struggle on those hard tyres compared to everyone else around him. Anthony Cat on tyres that are 15 laps younger, and we've seen he's brave enough to make those moves into the weird spots, down into the likes of turn 9. I almost felt like he might have a peak into turn 10. This is Eduardo. It's not quite Eduardo release. It's Van Dalen losing another spot, I think, to Wesley Batista into 4. Again, another place where we've seen some good side-by-side racing, but no, there's contact. Van Dalen getting a bit of a touch to the left rear corner into turn 5, and around he goes.
Yeah, just like that. That's how quickly all the trouble's there. And Emil Bernstorff's got a little bit of something in a straight line because Anthony Cat couldn't do anything about it. Staying with George Van Rensburg, the group is, and this is what Cat needs to try and make something happen. Joseph Loke, out of frustration, has just set the fastest lap of the race, by the way, 107.4. So that shows you how angry he is. But a little search to the inside from Anthony Cat. No dice. They go through Jack Miller corner. Little bit of locking by George Van Rensburg, but just that, a little bit of locking. Do want to point out the race lead gap, though. 4.7 seconds here. Eduardo Radice has kept Jacob Reed very honest, and I think he's done incredibly well, actually, in this middle stint of the race to keep Jacob Reed just stuck at a level to say, no closer.
It's back and forth between these two, lap after lap. Reed goes fast, Eduardo Radice matches, and then goes a little bit quicker on the next lap. You can see it on the lap deltas just down there at the bottom of your screen. 300ths, 9/10ths, and then 3/10ths of a second. Of course, that's still advantage for Eduardo Radice. But Reed, just on this late in the stint, isn't able to make that progress. So I'm just seeing Anthony Cat go for a move on the inside of Emil Bernstorff. These guys still fighting into turn 1. Again, one of the preferred overtaking spots on the track. The DRS really helping out with that one, as we see another overtake happening in the background. That's Paul O'Regan making his way up into P11. And Nick Burke just falling through the field like a stone yet again. Anthony Cat still on those hard tyres. He's doing a great job, actually, to hang on to the back of George Van Rensburg. His car is still going to be feeling the effects of that huge lockup on the front right corner on the previous lap. As much as you don't get flat spots in iRacing, you do get temperature and tyre wear buildup. I think we were talking before the race about how after 43 laps, on the hards, they go down to something like 6%. And of course, that is scaled as the tire gets softer and softer and softer. So even one lockup, one big scrub of that tire
does a lot. It does an absolute...
to that tire surface.
Yeah, it does a mammoth amount, and in comes Emil Bernstorff. He's done with the hard tyre. His middle stint then sorted, and surely he'll look at a set of soft tyres to get himself home and to attack the final stages of this race. He knows how important it is that he's done well to hold with the likes of who he was around there, the likes of Van Rensburg and co, who are all in play. Nick Burke also is going to dive into the pits then and make his pit stop with no tyres on front left or front right.
Oh.
What has gone on? He's hit the attenuator coming down the pits.
Oh, that is absolutely disastrous for Burke, and that is not the way he'll want his race to end. We've been talking about him a lot this race so far because he's been well in the picture, scrapping for points, scrapping for positions. It's a big kick of oversteer into 11. That's going to flash heat at the surface at the rear of the car. You can see it getting a little bit out of shape on it, pit lane entry as well, and then gets on the brakes. Both front tires lock up, and then both tires just sort of pop off the car like we saw, I think, in 2010 for Sebastian Buemi at China. Very similar to that one, but Nick Burke out of this race after being a big name in the picture for points today.
Mark Van Dalen, 11 seconds. That's a front wing change for him as he gets himself back going again. Florian Kameyer now in for his final stop of the race with 21 laps to go. There's the move from Anthony Cat through on George Van Rensburg, and he dispatches of the South African and moves himself now up into 6th position on the road. Anthony Cat making his set of hard compound tyres work now because he needs them to work now. He's on those surely to the end of this race.
I think that's the thing to really focus on there, is the fact that Anthony Cat is now starting to make progress on that harder tyre. George Van Rensburg, 14 laps into his stint on the softs. He has been really pushing in this stint to make up the places on those around him, and it's really taken the edge off that tyre. And it's why Cat has been able to retake that position as, yeah, you're right, Sperry, Reed is down pit lane for what should be the final time. What tyre is he going to pick?
Well, surely a soft one. I think he's looking at this going, well, if he's going to need to make any progress, he needs to undercut Eduardo Radice. And so through goes Volta Lux. No surprises there as he goes to second, and will still have one more to go and make on his stop. But at the moment, it's third coming out the pits for Jacob Reed, and he'll need to find about 5 seconds. Jorge Martinez also dives his way into the pits. We are firmly in the final thralls of strategy out there at the moment, and now you are really seeing what all these drivers try and find. And I think Joseph Loke is now officially out.
Yeah, Loke finally pulls down pit lane for the final time. Don't know whether it was forced or by choice. You see him another kick of oversteer out of 11. We've seen that so often. Just loses the front end through there, and that was actually Burt going into the barrier in front of him. So we get a nice little offboard of that one.
Loke's rolled it over.
So where has that happened? I wonder if we can get...
Exit 2.
Oh, yeah, so we might be able to get a replay for you on that one, but what a spot to roll the car through turn 2. But whilst we're grabbing that, I do just want to touch on the Jacob Reed strategy call. Here does come the replay. We'll come back to the strategy call. Through turn 2, Loke comes very wide on exit. Back end goes round and then just gets caught in the gravel, and up and over he goes onto the roll hoop. Thank goodness for the halo, but the strategy call from Jacob Reed, I absolutely love it. He came out in bags and bags of clean air, had no one around him bar a back marker that would have been shown that blue flag that people in this series are going to abide by. This is your official Formula One series, this is. And he's come out 1.7 seconds behind Eduardo Radice, and that is only 7/10 outside of DRS.
Well, 1 lap, 3 seconds. That shows you all you need to know there with Eduardo Radice's stop. He's just come out of the pits with. So now that brings Jacob Reed right back into it in this fight for the victory. You look behind as well, Van Rensburg and Apari, Batista the lap traffic with Van Dalen battling also on the back of this. So they are looking around. And this might be one of those weird scenarios right now where Wesley Batista wants to unlap himself. But look at that gap at the front of the field. Jacob Reed, who has had to go over hill and dale to try and get himself working here at this fantastic circuit, finally, with 19 laps to go, as he'll start lap 52, soon to be 18 to go, has Eduardo Radice in sight.
Yeah, but we've seen how much Reed has actually struggled to close the gap on Radice, especially in that middle stint throughout the entirety of this race. He was 1.7 seconds back when he came out of pit lane. And even though Radice will have been struggling to get those tyres up into their operating window, Reed just didn't really gain any time on him. So it's going to be these back markers coming into play that are going to affect how that gap shifts and changes over the course of the last little bits of this race. But realistically, Sperry, 19 laps is a really long way to go to hold off a 1.6 second gap. Because at some point, the DRS is going to come into play. I think we just saw George van Rensburg losing a couple of positions there as well.
Yeah, Voltalux has also come in for his final stop. He's back out and away in 4th position, and he's done so well. He's 5 seconds clear of Jorge Martinez, and then a 10 ahead of Emil Bernstorff. He's done fantastically. You can't miss the bright green machine of Jason Green out there on track, and he'll now fall the lap here to Eduardo Radice. That gap is now 1 second and a little bit of spare change, and because of Jason Green, there's DRS available for Jacob Reed. He's now in range.
But not for Eduardo Radice. He just cleared Jason Green way too early, and it's given Reed just a complete free race time. 0.7 seconds is now the gap, and Radice will have wanted to keep him outside that DRS window for as long as possible. Fortunately for Radice, he is starting to come up on a little bit more back marker traffic, so hopefully for him, they will be able to give him a little bit of DRS down that start-finish straight to defend. But Radice is giving it absolutely everything right now as that gap is slowly building its way up back to a second. If he can get outside that 1 second window, he's going to be safe from a DRS attack from Jacob Reed. And you know what, Sperry? For now, it looks like he's done it. But through turn 9, Reed just closes in a little bit more, and it's going to be so marginal as to whether or not he's going to have DRS on this straight. Keep an eye on that wheel for the green light.
There's no green light because he's gone through the marker zone, and that's on the exit of turn 11, so he will not get DRS on this straight. Eduardo Radice survives for another lap over the line. It is 1 second and 200ths, the gap that is there. So next to nothing then in terms of that difference between DRS and not. This battle for the race lead, which is going to be all of this final stint, all the way to the end. You've got Anthony Catt, who's going to be desperate to try and hold on to 3rd position on his hard tyres, but he's getting hunted hand over fist by Voltalux, who looks like he might be in position to get what he wants. And Jorge Martinez is through on Adam Webb on that last lap, which now puts Martinez into the top 5 for the first time. Webb still holding out on that one-stop strategy on the medium tyres, it looks like right now, and still they go through. Look at how much traffic's coming up for Eduardo Radice. He's got Lyle Pinar and Michel Rudeau, who are battling for 15th place.
Yeah, and even through all that, he has managed to build a little bit of a gap for Jacob Reed. I think Reed, maybe with those 3 seconds, just taking a little bit too much out of the tyre right at the start of its life. They say with these tyres, they do have a memory, and if you don't bring them in gently, that's when they're really going to start to struggle. And to me, that looks like it's exactly what's happened for Jacob Reed. Eduardo Radice, stopping a little bit later, just really took his time to gently get the tyres warmed up and get them into the window where they needed to be without scrubbing them too much, without causing those little micro spots of temperature that you see in real life. And I think that's what's giving him the advantage right now. We'll see how it changes over the course of the next 15 laps or so. But if you had to make me pick right now, I'd say it's advantage Radice as he comes up to behind Lyle Pinar. He may get some DRS into Sector 3. Reed won't have any DRS down that start-finish straight. And again, it's going to be another chance for that gap to increase.
Emil Bernstorff, by the way, has caught right up to the back of Adam Webb for 6th position. I think a move's just about to happen here as they head to turn 4 of Jack Miller, and in fact it will just happen. That gap remains 1.3. Bernstorff's gone too deep and through back again is going to go Adam Webb. So Emil Bernstorff overcooking the car, trying to build margin over the likes of James Byrne and Kammeyer and Van Rensburg and Apariari, who are all trying to bring themselves in the final stage. We'll take another look at this. Adam Webb has one goal, just hold on to the tyres for as long as he can, and ultimately there, going through the grass, Emil Bernstorff just a little bit too greedy into the corner. We've seen him have struggles there, not for the first time today.
Yeah, I was going to say, not the first time we've seen him make that same mistake at that small tailwind. It doesn't sound like much, but it is enough to just unsettle the rear of the car and push it deeper into the corner. than you might otherwise want it to. Here's George van Rensburg, 0.4 seconds off the back of Florian Kammerer. Kammerer pulling to the inside, trying to break that slipstream down into one. Doesn't have the DRS from the car in front as Van Rensburg pulls to the inside, takes the shorter line through one, is well clear of Florian Kammerer before they get on the brakes for turn 2. And you see, again, as soon as that move's made, dirty air gets thrown at the car behind, and the car that's just made the move gets to run off into the distance. But here is a bit of a scrap that we've been wanting to keep our eye on for quite a while. Walter Lux has finally got onto the back of Anthony Cat on those 18-lap old hard tyres. They've got a bit of lap traffic to try and contend with as Mark Van Dalen is trying to get his way into this one as well. But Walter Lux, it looks like a done deal at this point.
Well, Lux, who has worked so hard in terms of putting himself with the work from year to year, was 4th in the championship last year and did some very sensational work. They dispatch of Eric Boersma, but that might just be enough of a gap which stops Anthony Cat bringing himself into play, and he looks each and every way, does Lux, trying to hope that he's got the move that he needs, but that doesn't work for him just yet, and now he'll need the drive as he will come along this next section of road, hoping that he can get that work sorted. Lux down the inside, in towards turn 4, and that will put him up on the podium for a driver who has done so well, and he's part of the AVL Racetech family, one of the biggest manufacturers in the world of motorsport, and Lux did a fantastic job of waiting for the right time to strike. Look how much Cat's struggling.
And if it wasn't going to be a done deal by the DRS, it was going to be a done deal by the tyre advantage. Lux just pushing that car out of the corner through 2, getting the run into 3, taking advantage of all of that electrical power, just pushing him down the straight, peaks the car to the right-hand side, coming down into turn 4, as we're going to see a replay from the Pariari, I think, making a position on Florian Kammerer. That is quite a long way back, but Kammerer just goes wide through turn 2, and through goes a Pariari. But back to Walter Lux for just a moment, peeking out of the slipstream where he needed to, dives it down the inside on the brakes, and with that soft tyre, makes that position as a Pariari. We are seeing just defend the place from Kammerer, who tried to have a go to get back at him, but it wasn't quite enough to get back through.
That was for 1 SimSpeed Championship point, and there is the move again on the front stretch. Adam Webb losing out this time. It's James Byrne who will find himself through from Club New England in the United States. George van Rensburg sits behind as well. James Byrne, the only driver in this field who has a spotter helping him, Taylor. He's got his brother Jamie.
No, and I rate it. It's not something we often see in single-seater racing, but it's certainly something that comes in handy, especially with the limitations of sim racing, where a lot of these drivers will only be on one single monitor, giving them absolutely no visibility either side of the car. Having that little angel almost over your shoulder just to be like, okay, there's a car here, this is what's going on, here's your gaps to the car behind, here's your gaps to the car ahead, here's your pace, can just give you so much extra confidence as Edward Apariari having a look down the inside of 10 for a move. But just having a spotter, having an engineer that can take some of the mental pressure of managing a race off you so you can just focus on the driving can give you such an advantage. DRS though, for Edward Apariari, both the drivers are going to open that rear flap. Apariari to the inside, they're going to draw side by side into one, but Apariari on that advantageous inside line will squeak through yet again up into P9, and it's George van Rensburg, the next car in front of him, and he's already making plenty of progress.
That is a lot of gravel out there on track, and I wonder who's gone barreling through it out on track, and I think it was Wesley Batista after contact with Mark Van Dalen. So those two coming together, and Batista having to scrabble across the kitty litter, so to speak, out there. Gap at the front now is out to 2.2 seconds. We take a replay out there. Jacob Reed unable to keep the pace up compared to Radice. And the issue you got there is Batista's turned into the corner, but Van Dalen's there.
Yeah, and it's so difficult to then get the car back on the track after you've been off, and especially since the debris refresh that we've had in iRacing between the end of last season and the start of this season, it does make the gravel very, very slippery, and we're going to get plenty more marbles on the racing surface as well, which makes the racing itself a little bit more difficult as it takes away one of the racing lines through the corner. But all of our drivers having to contest with that today. It does take a while for that gravel to clear, but it is a fantastic feature that's been brought into iRacing in the last 6 months.
I'm not sure if it is his brother who's there spotting for him, because when you've got James and Jamie, I assume he owns both accounts out there, so it could legitimately be anyone, but he has gone through, has James Byrne, on Emil Bernstorff, so Bernstorff drops the place. That's Michel Rudeau potentially out there, yes, fighting with Lyle Pienaar. This is a lap down for 15th place out there. Rudeau giving himself then the chance to go and attack. He'll look to the outside of the Doohan corner. It's not named after Jack, who's driving for Alpine this year. It's named after his dad, Mick Doohan, a fantastic bike rider and racer out there. But look at the understeer from Lyle Pienaar through turn 2, and that just completely opens up shop for Michel Rudeau. Down the inside, turned outside. Pienaar tries to throw it into the corner, and you know what? South African's going to make that stick.
No, I'll rate it. I'll give him some credit for that. It's an absolutely fantastic recovery from losing all of that momentum through turn 2. And as much as we don't offer points for P15, there's going to be a lot of, not ego on the table, but certainly bragging rights between these two who really want to beat each other and just finish as high up the field as possible. Here's Anthony Cat, though, who's trying to fend off Jorge Martinez, who is 2 cars behind him at the moment. Mark van Dalen just involved in this battle a little bit. He will have blue flags for the number 4 car that we are on board with. I don't know when he's going to decide to jump out of the way, if he does make that choice, but Jorge Martinez is going to want him to stay there just a little bit longer to try and catch that DRS down the start-finish straight. Just as I was talking about them, you saw the marbles on the outside of turn 10 there and being flicked up by the cars in front. Martinez is going to be in the DRS of Mark van Dalen, and this is where I expect van Dalen to jump out the way and let Martinez just draft up to the back of Anthony Cat and really start to apply that pressure.
Well, he doesn't move through turn 1. He's not close enough, but that's a missing front wing for Edward Apariari, and that's going to be him diving down the pits. Where has he gone and lost that out on track? He looks like he's been limping it around for half a lap. He's clattered into George Van Rensburg at turn 4, Taylor.
And it's such a rare mistake to see as well. I'm just trying to wind it back myself, but Jade's going to queue up a replay for us. Just gets on the brakes a little bit late, goes very deep into the corner, taps the rear end of Van Rensburg, which sends his car into a bit of a half spin and just slams the front end of Van Rensburg's car into his front wing and snaps it clean off. It's a very fragile piece of carbon fiber on the front end of that car. And Edward Apariari, who is having a fantastic race, will have to get on a fresh set of tyres and get a brand new front wing. I think we're going to see the onboard for you as well, as you just see it's a very late move into 4, and a little bit of netcode involved in there, but it was definitely one of those incidents that was going to happen anyway.
Yeah, there's no way he was going to get that slowed up by the time he got halfway through the corner. So you turn around at that. It's one of those where everyone likes to scream and cry about netcode ruins racing on the internet. It does. But at that point, you were going to have that incident anyway. So that's one you can't really hold your hands up and cry about. That's just the nature of the beast. And that sort of happens. Martinez, though, only able to close half a second on that last lap on Anthony Cat. And this is where it's going to get interesting. Those soft tyres are going to continue to wear as a much slower plateau for the hard tyres. And that's what Cat's banking on here in the final 7 laps. That plateau is not very much.
And I really think it is Martinez in the hot seat for this one. I know he struggled to get onto the Cat and get onto the back of Cat and really make that move work. But being within half a second coming out of turn 10 this time by, it's a touch of an oversteer moment for Cat on the way back up the hill. They're going to cross the DRS detection point. There will be a big green light on Jorge Martinez's wheel. He will open that rear flap yet again. Cat is going to have no DRS. Look at the straight line speed advantage already. Martinez to the outside of turn 1 will get well clear before turning, and Cat just has to watch that red and silver car disappear off into the distance.
Yeah, nothing he can do. The difference is 11 laps on the tyres, and it is soft versus hard tyre. And Anthony Cat just has to wave a flag and say, not much I can do. He's got 10 seconds with 6 laps to go over James Byrne, who will not catch him at this current rate. So it looks like 5th is what he's going to have to settle for. There's your gap out there at the moment from Eduardo Radice to Jacob Reed, and that gap is now almost at 4 seconds, which is the gap it was before the pit stops came into play. And this is where it was a roll of the dice from Jacob Reed. He had to do something. Radice was always going to cover him off in terms of the move, and for Jacob Reed, the troubles that he found himself with, the poor get-go on the start, the bit of contact, the time he ran off the road, it all adds up, and it adds up to, oh, I don't know, about 3.5 seconds.
I don't like to toot my own horn too often, but I'll say this, I 100% called that one. Reed took way too much out of his tyre way too early in his stint, and yes, it got him within that 2-second window of Eduardo Radice and almost gave him that shot to try and have a go at the lead. But this late on in the stint, 16 laps deep, taking that much out of the tyre so early on has just left him with absolutely nothing for the final 5 laps. And I know this isn't endurance racing, but it is so important to keep the tyres alive for as long as possible in any discipline of motorsport, especially one where we have tyre deg this high.
Keep an eye on what's going on for 9th, 10th and 11th right now. It's side by side between Paul O'Regan and Adam Webb, and we saw it all of last year and we're seeing it again here. How does Paul O'Regan continue to find SimSpeed Championship points in the back pocket? That's George Van Rensburg in front, and I don't know how much damage he's nursing here through the final few laps of this race because of the contact he had earlier on. But you're looking around now and you're staring down the barrel of Paul O'Regan, who started 19th on the grid, getting himself involved, and so too Kent Nielsen, who might be able to snipe a top 10 out of this.
Well, Nielsen's certainly going to be keeping an eye on what happens between Adam Webb and Paul O'Regan as things start to hot up just a little bit in the dying laps of this race. Nielsen has great pace right now, especially compared to everyone else in front of him. In fact, of Van Rensburg, Webb and O'Regan, Nielsen is the only car that on average has been in the 1 minute 9 second lap times. It's going to take a little bit of patience, I think, for him to get back into the top 10. But if Paul O'Regan and Adam Webb keep this scrap up for much longer, it's going to completely open the door for Nielsen. We've seen that it's possible to make up 2 places in one corner, and the driver of that number 14 car is going to be trying to make that happen.
Adam Webb desperate to make his one-stop strategy work. This is the downside of his one-stop strategy. It's the fact that everybody who's been on a 2 or even a 3-stop strategy, as that was Kent Nielsen sliding it about there at turn 4, catching a half snap through the middle. He just put the power down when he had 2 wheels on the curb and the car said no. So Nielsen's got to do it all over again if he wants what is now 11th place on track. But Adam Webb really struggling right now on those very old medium tyres. Let's take another look. Oh, Webb's off.
For you on board as Webb does go off on the picture there. But you see Nielsen just asking way too much of the rear tyres this late on in the stint. They're just not able to give him anything at all. Here's the replay though of Webb's off. We're coming through turn 8 and 9 just now. It was 10 where it happened. I think it was a bit of a rear snap on the brakes, which we so often see in these cars. Oh no, it's a front lock that turns into a rear lock and just sends the car into a half spin. He has to recover relatively slowly, but now that car is going to be covered in marbles and grass. He's going to take a while to get those tyres clean again.
Toughest section of the circuit over Lukey Heights into MG. You've got gravity working against you as you go down through this section. Jorge Martinez, though, cannot shake Anthony Catt, and those hard tyres coming back in. They will have 2 laps to go as they cross the line here, Taylor, and this is where Anthony Catt was trying to do everything he can to peg back Jorge Martinez.
And he's 7/10 back right now. I don't think the DRS on the straight is worth 7/10 of a second, even if you do keep it open through turn 1, which Anthony Catt almost chose to do. Closed it very late in the corner, but only gains 0.2 of a second on Jorge Martinez. It's in those corners that Catt's starting to have that advantage now as the gap just closes in yet again. And this is where we are seeing that crossover between some very old hards and some relatively old softs. It's just the difference in tyre deg that's keeping Anthony Catt in the fight right now.
The white flag will wave by Barney as we now get ourselves set. Eduardo Radice, 4 seconds to the good. on Jacob Reed, who knows that there is nothing he can do about what he's got in front of him. He has thrown everything he could to try and get his strategy to work, but the Italian has pretty much sat in the right place, the right time, and he's made it work for him. There's still battles, Marquez versus Cap, Byrne versus Bernstorff out there on circuit, and as well, O'Regan versus Van Rensburg, which I think Van Rensburg has just fallen off the back of in 10th. Through Siberia will come Eduardo Radice, knowing how important it is to start the season on the right foot. It took until Interlagos over the course of 2024 to pick up his first win of the season. He took the season finale round at Hockenheimring to make sure that he got something to give himself a bit of momentum. But out of turn 11 and over towards turn 12, it is simply the perfect start from Eduardo Radice, and he will come to the line and take victory at Phillip Island for the first time in his career. His third championship or third race win will give him the championship lead for the first time.
And what a brilliant drive from Eduardo Radice, just to keep himself well within the window that he needed to. Later on in that race, Jacob Reed, who finished second, had absolutely nothing to give. Here comes Walter Lux, who on a slightly alternate strategy was able to drag himself back up through the field. Through turn 12 he comes for the final time, pulls over to the side of the track just to give his virtual pit crew a bit of a wave to bring it home in third place. You see more cars come across the line for the final time. The fight between Bernstorff and Byrne never really changed too much. I think Emil Bernstorff, in fact, no, sorry, it did. Bernstorff managing to get himself in front of Byrne in the dying lap of the race. It will finish Emil Bernstorff in 6th and James Byrne in 7th place.
That was done. Turn 1, final lap of the race. James Byrne had nothing to fight with. Emil Bernstorff had to go all the way to the inside to try and cover and get that move. And the bravery required from Emil Bernstorff was simply sensational. Over the line, it would be O'Regan versus Van Rensburg. We'll see this then on the final go through as we take our SimSpeed replay. Look how late of a defense it is from James Byrne. He just couldn't shut the door.
That is absolutely marginal stuff from both drivers. Byrne closing that door extremely late in the game, and Bernstorff looking at it and going, nah, you know what? I'm still going to go for that. Snatches the inside, takes the position like it's absolutely no one's business. That is a beautiful move to end the race.
And a wonderful race that has flown by, ladies and gentlemen. 1 hour, 21 minutes and 30 seconds. Eduardo Radice gets his third win in the iRacing Grand Prix Tour, and he wins by 4.4 seconds over Jacob Reed, the two-time world champion in second. Walter Lux would end up on the podium in third, with Jorge Marquez then in fourth position, and Anthony Cat just unable to stave him back, but still a respectable top 5 from him. Back to 2023 form for Anthony Cat. Emil Bernstorff would take that position away on the final lap from James Byrne, making his 6th place better than the 7th of James's, with Florian Kammerer getting himself into 8th place. A fantastic gain of 10 for Paul O'Regan as he moves into 9th position from 19th, and a gain of 11 for George Van Rensburg is your biggest move in the field. Kent Nielsen is honestly struggling a little bit with 11th place finishes over the course of his career. He has finished 11th on 5 occasions. This now his 6th time he has finished just outside of the points in that 11th place. And then in 12th is Adam Webb, his very good friend, the last driver on the leading lap. The front wing dispatching for Edward Apariari. It looked in the early stages like a podium could have been on the cards for him. It's just P13 with a lap down. Doriano Ricciuti, Michel Rudeau, Lyle Pienaar, Jason Green finding himself a lap down along with Mark Van Dalen. Wesley Batista had himself a great qualifying, but of course he ran himself into troubles, couldn't keep the pace of everyone around. Eric Bersma there in 20th position, and then everyone else from here, retirements. The fastest lap officially going to Joseph Loke, with Nick Burke and Danilo Piazza, those 3 all retirements here today from Phillip Island. But that is one round of 24 of the iRacing Grand Prix Tour in the books, but we'll run it back in 7 days' time as we move over to the Autodromo Internazionale del Mugello. And Mugello is a circuit which does favour certain drivers rather than others, but you've got that massive front stretch up the hill to San Donato, which is one of the most fantastic overtaking places on the track.
Mugello is a brilliant circuit, and it's certainly one that lends itself to drivers who can really look after those front tyres, because it is an endless assault from corners, even, from the first turn to the last. So if you can get yourself on that soft compound tyre, but really nurse them, you're going to have such an advantage at the end of any stint and at the end of the race. It does offer only one good overtaking opportunity, but if you can be brave, there's a couple more spots you can throw your car up the inside and really try to make something happen. The real life racing here wasn't spectacular, but we've seen how well these cars race at things that are traditionally considered a bike track. So I'm convinced that we're going to have a brilliant fight out there at Mugello when we return in, a week's time.
Yeah, we'll be right back with you, and we will be enjoying it. Want to give a massive thanks to everyone who has brought this show together over to you. From Jay Kennedy, who's been in the production chair, from Taylor Mills, who's been alongside me. My name is Jake Sperry. We're back with the iRacing Grand Prix Tour, and we missed it so much. There's a reason why you can never truly know who's going to win a race like this, because you have to keep your eyes on a swivel with strategy, which seems to be up, down, and all around from everyone as they look to try and win races like these. Eduardo Radice finishes last season and carries that momentum into this season with winning form. Back-to-back victories, technically, it's going to be called. It's his third win in the iRacing Grand Prix Tour, and for the first time in his career, he leads the championship of the iRacing Grand Prix Tour. We will see you in 7 days' time as Eduardo Radice will look to defend that championship lead he has earned on home soil. We'll see you at Mugello, where the second round of the championship will now bring itself into play.